Alright, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fly bar. Here, all we should have to do is remove this little hex head screw on either side. And I'm going to take a pair of side cutters. We'll probably just cut it right there. And then this should pull through. And then once I've done that, if we snap off this ball link here on both sides, this outer piece should come right on off. And then from there I'll want to inspect that seesaw. That I think they call it a seesaw bar. Because the last crash that I had, that did break and I glued it back together. And it looks like it's definitely broke again. I have another one to replace it. Only problem is on that bearing there in the middle. I don't know if you can see it. I was having a terrible time trying to get that to come out of the head. So I may have to do some research on as to how to get that out of there. And in order to get that seesaw bar out. And we'll go from there. Okay, I got the fly bar out, and again I had to cut it, and once I undid the little hex head screws here, it slid right out. And as expected, the seesaw bar was broke up inside. The last time, like I said, I glued it into place, and just with some CA glue on the ends there, and that worked. But since I have a new one, I'm just going to go ahead and replace it with the new one, and I would recommend also to replace it with the new one. I was probably taking a risk by running it with the one that I had repaired, because if that breaks on you in flight, you're not going to have any control, and it's going to go where it wants to go. So I'm going to take, I can't see it there, but there's a screw there on either side. I'm going to take those off and see what I can do about getting that seesaw bar out of there. And wish me luck. Okay, got an update here. I found on the internet, in order to get those bearings out of there, what we do is you take a socket that's just big enough to set the head on, but also big enough for that bearing to fall into the socket. Then you take maybe a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench and put through on the other side, and then tap the opposite side bearing into the socket. So what I'm going to do next, before I attempt to do that, is I'm going to take the shaft out, and I'll try to again demonstrate how we're going to pop them bearings off of there. And before I do that, I should let you know too that the way to take the shaft out is at the bottom of the drive gears here. There's a nut and bolt down there, again a hex head bolt. Once you undo that, and all of our linkages are disconnected like it is here, that main shaft will just pull right out. One thing I should add too when removing the shaft is, you will have to pop off the linkages on the swash plate. There is I don't know if you can see it, but there is a little it's not going to get past this little ring that's on the main shaft, so we'll have to pop that off. And that'll do it. Now that I have the main shaft off, what I've decided to do is we'll just go ahead and remove this top head piece here, and that'll make it much easier to get those bearings out on that head. And again, just remove that one hex head bolt nut on the other side, and this piece will come right off the top of the shaft. And then we'll also spin that shaft on I'll stick it in a drill, and then we'll run it on the drill just to see if it's running straight. If it's not, then I do have a spare that we'll put in the new one. Once the head piece is off, then the main shaft will just pull right through this wash plate assembly here. And it looks like that's all in pretty good shape. I don't feel any binding in that, so we're just going to go ahead and slide that off and keep it all as one piece for right now. I'll set that off to the side. I just hope that I can remember where all these little pieces go. If nothing else, I can always watch my videos, I guess. And I mean, on first inspection though, it doesn't look like the main shaft got bent, but it should be amazing considering that when I crashed it, it was inverted. There's also a little spacer that's in there. Don't want to lose that. I don't know if your helicopter will have the spacer or if it'll have two spacers. In either case, just keep an eye on how many spacers you've got. And those spacers, they'll set in between on the shaft. They'll go right over the top of the main bearing here that's in the body. So keep an eye out for any spacers that might be sitting on top of that bearing. And as a matter of fact, it looks like there's one that's right there right now. Yeah, see, there's another little spacer right there. So I want to keep those to where I make sure that those go back. Okay, this is what we're going to do for these bearings for the seesaw bar. I'm using about a 7mm socket. We're going to set that on the bottom. And then we're going to position the bearings to where they'll drop down inside the socket. When I take a Allen wrench, I might have to find something smaller than that, but maybe a little screwdriver. Take it through this hole on the top, and then tap the outer race of the bearing on the opposite side lightly. And I would alternate back and forth from one side to the next until that bearing starts to slide out of there, and it should pop right down into that socket there. And but you got to be careful. You don't want to put too much force on it. You don't want to mess up the bearing by tapping it too much. And make sure that it's going to go into that hole on the socket. And that's what we're going to do. Sorry I don't have my hat cam with or set up for it, so that way I can do this while I'm recording. But hopefully you'll get the gist of what's going on here. Okay, I did get the teeter or the seesaw bar bearings out, but I ended up damaging them in the process. It's going to be very difficult to do this, I think, without damaging the bearings. As you can see there on that race, those dimples there, yeah, that's not good. So I don't have a replacement set for those for right now. I'm going to continue on with the repair. Hopefully I can pick up a set of those bearings tomorrow at the hobby store, and we'll complete the head then. Again, like I said, we'll continue on. Just we'll have to get those replaced. So if you ever have to replace the seesaw bar, I recommend to get a set of bearings to also, just in case you destroy the ones trying to get those bearings out of the head. Okay, I just found out that it looks like E-flite does not sell these bearings separately. So you have to buy the head block rotor housing assembly for $25 to get those two bearings. I looked in the parts listing and there's no separate number for these bearings. It's all part of this assembly. So if anybody is from anybody from E-flite is watching this, it would be really nice just to have these two bearings as a separate part instead of having to pay a whole $25 to get the whole assembly to get those bearings, because there's nothing wrong with this assembly. And in order to get the bearings out, there's a real good possibility of damaging them. So E-Flight, I hope you're watching this. I will be picking up an assembly tomorrow for $25, just so I can get the 2 bearings. And so in the meantime, I've got to try to do something with all of this stuff here so it doesn't get lost, mixed up, and out of order until I can get this assembly tomorrow. And I will continue on with some of the other repairs just yet, so continue watching.